The Apple iPhone 13 is finally getting the upgrades we desperately needed, and I'll be sharing the details right after this. If you're new here and want to stay up to date with the latest tech, please hit subscribe followed by the bell. You can also keep up on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter by clicking the links in the description. So this week we've got some great news about the upcoming Apple iPhone 13. We've got details of a much needed upgrade to hardware, better displays and a brand new render of the upcoming smartphone. Before we get started though, please smash the like button if you're a fan of Apple and let me know down in the comments what device you're watching this video on. But first up, we already had news from analyst Ming-Chi Kuo that the iPhone 13 series would again be coming in 4 different models to suit everyone. We now have even better news. Ming-Chi Kuo is one of the most reliable analysts when it comes to Apple leaks, and he's advised that the iPhone 13 series is finally going to be getting a huge upgrade in the battery department with a brand new technology. On its predecessor, the battery life is okay and it does last the day, but it's relatively on the small side when it comes to the capacity. The Apple iPhone 13 series is going to benefit from softboard battery technology, and this has less layers than conventional batteries, meaning the battery itself is smaller. This means that Apple can either make a smaller or more slim device, or alternatively they can use the same space internally for a larger battery capacity. It's reported that Jia Lianli, a softboard battery tech supplier, is expected to obtain about 40 to 50% of softboards for the iPhone 13 and the 13 mini. Not only is this going to save space internally, but it's reportedly going to reduce cost as well. This extra capacity also helps back up the report from the Elec last week that shares information of 120Hz LTPO display on the iPhone 13 Pro and the 13 Pro Max. Now I know what you're thinking, we had all of this before with the iPhone 12, but it did come close with some test models having it, but unfortunately it just didn't make the cut in the end. It was removed due to battery concerns and 5G took priority. Now 5G has been shown to be a great battery drain on the 12, so it's clear why 120Hz just couldn't be included. Now LTPO on the other hand is a more power efficient technology for displays. It will allow the iPhone to have a variable refresh rate, which means it can drop as low as 1 Hz and go as high as 120. Now this is incredibly important for battery efficiency, as when it comes to 120Hz it is going to need more power, and it isn't always needed when it's using apps that don't really support it. iPhones have very limited battery capacity as it is, so softball batteries along with an LTPO display should be able to deliver what we all wanted. Next up, we've got a brand new iPhone 13 render from Technizo Concept that showcases the Apple iPhone 13. Now of course this is a concept render and we're going to get a lot of these crop up over the next year. The concept render shows a sensible estimation of what we're going to get from the latest iPhone 13, probably a similar design to the predecessor but with minor changes and improvements on hardware. Now when it comes to the actual iPhone 13 design that we're going to get, it's way too early to be providing information. There may be a prototype or a few that exist already, but it's so early in development, even if one was leaked then it could easily change over the coming months. Now that being said, we do have a little bit of information already when it comes to the specs and the hardware, so for those interested we're going to run through the whole of the iPhone 13 series. For my regular viewers, you guys have already seen this, so just skip to the next video, but if you're new here then don't forget to hit subscribe and we'll get right into it. So to start with, we've got the entry-level model, the Apple iPhone 13 mini. It's expected to be a 5.4-inch iPhone with an OLED Super Retina display. It's expected to have a resolution of 2340 by 1080, and this is going to give us 465 pixels per inch. It's very unlikely for high refresh rates on the lower models, so expect a 60Hz display, but we should be seeing this shorter notch. With Apple continuing to prove that huge amounts of RAM are just not required, it should be equipped with 4 gigs of RAM and a choice of 64, 128 or 256 storage. We're expecting another aluminium frame to reduce the cost, although again the body should be looking similar to that of the Pros, and the iPhone 13 mini is going to come with dual cameras on the rear consisting of a 12 megapixel wide angle and a 12 megapixel ultra wide, and it will of course ship with iOS 15. For those that want the 4 gigs of RAM with 64 gigs of storage, it's likely going to launch at a price of around $700. For 128 gig, it should be around $750, and for the 256 gig, it should be around $850. Next up, we've got the iPhone 13. The iPhone 13 is going to have a 6.1-inch OLED display with a resolution of 2532 by 1170, and this gives us 460 pixels per inch. Again, we only expect this model to be having a 60Hz display and no LTPO technology, but again, it may have a smaller notch. We expect 4 gigs of RAM along with a choice of 64, 128 or 256 storage, and the phone should have an aluminium frame. We're expecting a 12 megapixel wide angle and a 12 megapixel ultra wide, giving us another dual camera setup, and the phone is going to ship with iOS 15. For the 64 gig model, we're expecting around $800. If you want 128 gigs, it should be around $850. For the 256 gig version, it should be around $950. Next up, we've got the iPhone 13 Pro, and here's where things are going to change a little bit, although we are expecting a similar looking device. The iPhone 13 Pro is expected to come with a 6.1-inch OLED display with a resolution of 1170 by 2532, and this gives us 460 pixels per inch. Not only is it going to be brighter, but it's also going to be using LTPO technology and provide us with a 120Hz variable refresh rate at a full resolution. We're not expecting any increase of RAM as the A15 is going to be more than capable, so expect 6 gigs of RAM with a choice of 128, 256, 512 and maybe even a huge 1 terabyte of storage. Because this is the more premium model, we also expect another still frame, and on the iPhone 13 Pro we should be getting a quad camera setup. This is going to be a 12 megapixel wide angle, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, a 12 megapixel telephoto and a LiDAR sensor. The phone will of course ship with iOS 15, and when it comes to pricing, we do expect some small price increases with this new display technology, so we're estimating that 128 gigs may be around $1,050. For 256 it could be around $1,150, for 512 it could be $1,350, and if the 1 terabyte happens, then we could expect a whopping $1,550. Now finally, we've got the most premium model, the iPhone 13 Pro Max. The iPhone 13 Pro Max is expected to come with a 6.7-inch OLED display with a resolution of 1128 by 2778, giving us 458 pixels per inch. Again, it's going to be brighter, it's also going to be using the LTPO technology and provide us with that 120Hz variable refresh rate display. We can expect 6 gigs of RAM with a choice of 128, 256, 512 and again, if the leaks are true, then 1 terabyte of storage. Again, we're expecting another still frame on the iPhone 13 Pro Max and another quad camera setup. Again, this will be a 12 megapixel wide angle, 12 megapixel ultra wide, a 12 megapixel telephoto and the LiDAR sensor. Now the phone is of course going to ship with iOS 15, and when it comes to pricing, again we expect this increase, so we're estimating for 128 gig it's $1,150, for 256 gig it could be $1,250, for 512 it could be $1,450, and if this 1 terabyte storage happens, then we could see around $1,650, which is an incredibly huge price tag. So of course, with so many leaks floating around, things won't be clear until we get closer to launch and prototypes are made and hopefully leaked. As always though, if anything surfaces, I'm going to be sharing it with you guys straight away, but I'd like to know your thoughts in the comments. Who out there is excited for the Apple iPhone 13 and who out there has already purchased a 12? But thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, smash a thumbs up. If you didn't, hit the thumbs down twice, and I'll see you guys in the next one.